Hello there. Welcome back to coverage here at the Magic Online Championship. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Rietzel, and it is time for the finals. Is it going to be Steve Rubin, the Pro Tour champion, taking home the $40,000, the Insta Platinum, and the invite back to the Magic Online Championship next year? Or are we going to see our first repeat winner in Dmitriy Butakov? He won. He got his invite back. Didn't win the next year, just ground his way back into the tournament, and now he's facing down Steve Rubin here with a chance to become a two-time Magic Online champion. A really impressive achievement, to say the least. What do we see here, Paul? Mulligan plus maybe no ley line here from Dmitry.
Yeah, so these are the kind of games that Steve can certainly win. He's able to actually utilize Inquisition of Kozilek to take out the very powerful Daybreak Coronet. He has removal for the core Spirit Dancer, and it leaves Dmitry with really just a Griff Spoon to enhance his Slippery Boggle. So exactly the kind of start that Steve needs.
Wow, a window perhaps for Steve Rubin to get the job done here. He's going to have an interesting choice here on the second turn. He's going to use Fatal Push to kill the Spirit Dancer and play a tap land rather than running out of Tarmogoyf for a Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, he knows about the Griff Spoon in Dmitry's hand, so he can't afford to let Dmitry untap with a core Spirit Dancer in play.
Right, that is one way he'll just fall simply too far behind. But for now, he's at 15 and facing a relatively pedestrian draw, just 3 power over 2 creatures on the other side of the battlefield. And boom, that Goyf is a 5/6. It's huge.
Yeah, and as it stands right now, Steve is ahead. So Dmitry's deck is going to need to be kind to him with probably at least one additional aura, whether that's really actually doesn't matter what it is, since both of his creatures will have evasion. So,
look at this. Dmitry's actually gone all in on the one Slippery Bogle, leaving the Glade Cover Scout back. Perhaps lining up a chump block of sorts?
There's 2 reasons for this. The first one is that he wants to have Glade Cover Scout available to sacrifice to Liliana of the Veil. The second is that he sees in a race situation that Glade Cover Scout would need to do something like chump block. Yeah.
Okay. So, but still, Dmitry really hoping to find another aura off the top of his library, an Ethereal Armor, or God forbid another Daybreak Coronet could be fantastic for him. Let's see what he finds. He's going to use his Horizon Canopy to draw a card. Oh no, 2 lands off the top for Butakov. He misses, Paul.
Yeah, and look, I mean, his Glade Cover Scout is going to have to chump block as soon. Oh, actually, he may just be dead here. Right, the Bloodstained Mire, Lightning Bolt. He can activate the Raging Ravine. Isn't that 8?
Yes, he can just go upstairs with the Bolt, play the Bloodstained Mire, fire up the Ravine, chump block. Looks like he's going to grow the Scavenging Ooze, put him down to 5. Now that did actually shrink the Tarmogoyf, as it was the only creature in the graveyard. Does he still have enough to get the job done here?
Yeah, he still has enough. He has to think about potentially Path to Exile, but I think he's just going to go for it here. He doesn't have anything else he can really do.
He's also super unlikely to die on the crackback anyway, so it looks good.
Right. If he did have Path to Exile, that would indicate that he couldn't kill him on the crackback. So exactly. I expect him to activate this Treetop Village and swing in.
There it is, Treetop Village, and in comes the team, and Steve Rubin is going to steal game number 1 from Dmitry Butakov, and Steve was on the draw that game as well, so that is a huge breaking of serve there for Rubin. Fantastic for him. All right, we're going to take a look at the sideboards here of Dmitry Butakov and Steve Rubin. We're having some technical issues with Paul's internet connection, so we're going to bring Eric Froelich back into the mix here, and he'll give us some insight when he gets here about how it looks for sideboarding options. But I have to say, Steve Rubin is going to be absolutely thrilled to have stolen a game 1, particularly from Dmitry Butakov there, and you can see the players are now going in. Yeah. Oh. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Marshall. How's it going?
So, yeah, we had a little bit of issues with Paul, but thanks so much for tapping back in here. Yes, a miracle happened. Dmitry Butakov lost a game on camera here, and Steve Rubin kind of sniped one from him there. Pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the Jund matchup against Boggles is a lot better than the Grixis matchup. It's not great, but it's certainly winnable. And in a pilot like Steve Rubin, Pro Tour champion, platinum player, I mean, just one of the best in the world, let alone in this field. Not surprising.
Wow. Yeah, this is getting very interesting now because Paul and I kind of went over the deck list in a similar way that you and I did, Eric. But things looked a little bit better for Rubin, but actually not that much. He skimped a bit on the non-creature removal, so he has one Maelstrom Pulse. He doesn't have even a second copy of that, let alone any abrupt decays, which can be some of the ways that you can interact with these auras on the other side of the battlefield. He has a couple of Anger of the Gods that you can see that he's brought in, which have a window in which they can be good, but that window does tend to close pretty quickly. So he actually doesn't have that much.
Right. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head for sure about what the Anger of the Gods is capable of doing. The nice thing about Anger of the Gods is that it might not be able to kill the biggest boggle on the board. It might not be able to kill the premier threat, but it can keep the rest of the board clear and maybe have it so that you can block that creature for a little while, give yourself some extra time. If there's not a leyline in play, it might clear up the rest of the mess so that your Liliana could potentially edict that creature. So it definitely has some application. And then if Dmitriy stumbles at all, Anger can be great.
All right, looks like we are underway in game number 2. How do these opening hands look like for our two players here, Eric?
I love Steve's hand. It's slow. It doesn't really do a lot, but this Thoughtseize is going to get to resolve. There's no turn 1 ley line. He had the Pulse in case there was a potential ley line, and he has the Liliana of the Veil that's going to be a great way to potentially force a sacrifice of this lone Boggle. Now, on Dmitri's side, he had to keep a hand that had Boggle. Turn 2 ley line's a little rough. Now, he does have access to a Windswept Heath, which does give him the ability to go get a Dryad Arbor and protect his Boggle from the Liliana sacrifice effect.
All right, here's a Tarmogoyf now from Steve Rubin. Ethereal Armor off the top of the library, but we are going to be looking at, he has a Windswept Heath now, doesn't he?
Yeah, so he can actually go get a Dryad Arbor, which Steve is completely aware of, to prevent the Liliana sacrifice effect. Now, Maelstrom Pulse doesn't have to only hit, something like a Liliana, or something like a Leyline. It can still target one of these enchantments. He can get that Ethereal Armor off the board. What that does is put I guess Sorcery Enchantment already in the graveyard, but it would otherwise, in most instances, help grow Tarmogoyf. In this case, Tarmogoyf is looking like it's going to stay a 3/4, but he can take out this armor and, try to race. It's not a great race to try to win, though.
So what is the long-term plan here for Rubin? I mean, he was so close to being able to have Liliana of the Veil just be devastating for Butakov, but that Windswept Heath threatening the Dryad Arbor foils that plan. Maybe he just finds an answer for the Dryad Arbor itself and then deploys the Liliana. Is that, obviously
there's
it's not
really
a lot
of
time game plan, but yeah, that's what I was thinking too. He's already down to 10.
I think that one of Steve's options here would be to still just cast the Liliana and force Dmitry into that line of going to get the Dryad Arbor, force that to be sacrificed, and potentially make Dmitry now attack the Liliana and go for a Maelstrom Pulse next turn. Instead, Steve's just going to go for the Pulse play, kill the armor, and try to slow things down a little bit. Actually, what this does is it kind of makes it seem like the coast is clear, that there is no Liliana potentially. And so Dmitry actually goes and fetches. Well, it wouldn't have been too surprising for him to go get a land that could allow him to sack Horizon Canopy, except he had his one card in hand that actually cost more than 2 mana in his deck. Now he just gets to hard cast this Liliana, or this Leyline.
Right. And of course, that is going to prevent Liliana of the Veil from doing her thing as well. So Steve Rubin is forced to just keep this race up that he may win. We're going to see Horizon Canopies get cracked here as Dmitry Butakov digs. He finds a Spider Umbra. Who wins the race right now? Let's see. 3 power times 3, 2, 4, 6. It looks like it's in Butakov's favor barely.
Well,
3.
If we can get this Tarmogoyf is right now a 3/4, and this Raging Ravine represents 4 damage potentially. I mean, he would have to take a lot of damage to turn it on. So
no, that's true though.
So Liliana can tick up. It will put a creature into the graveyard, but without an instant, he can't actually threaten lethal.
Oh, so close.
He's 1 point short.
Oh, man. Steve is running the numbers to see, is there any way I can make this work?
Well, he's not dead.
Now, but if he wanted to try to attack with the Raging Ravine, he would just be dead, right?
Right, yeah.
So
he can't take 3 points.
Right.
That's for sure.
So he's going to get the last card out of hand here for Butakov. But Butakov has the Horizon Canopy and a draw step coming.
Right. Yeah, he's going to have a lot of outs to win this game immediately. I guess there are certain cards that Dmitriy could have had stranded in his hand that would have pumped Tarmogoyf and allowed it to become lethal. Not a lot of them, because basically have to be an instant, a Planeswalker, or a tribal card, of which Dmitriy doesn't have too many in his deck. Of course, he could cast a Path to Exile, but not impossible.
So land attack you down to 5, stay at 5, go, and he needs to have Butakov not draw another aura here. Oh, he hits Ethereal Armor. That is a embarrassingly good draw. That is the blowout right there. And this Glade Cover Scout's going to get the job done and kill Steve Rubin. He needed to fade that one draw step, and he couldn't do it. Butakov wins that game, and we're going to get a game 3 in our first match. For those of you just tuning in, this is the finals, and we are playing best 2 out of 3 matches. This is simply match number 1.
Yeah, that was a great game. The Temple Garden was one of the worst draws in the deck, because not only was it not the spell that wins the game, but it was something that if he had to then cast a creature out of his hand or a 2-mana spell, like he was going to take damage that way, which doesn't help. And if he drew a creature off of the Horizon Canopy, it would not have been enough to stay alive if he had attacked. So it would force him to hold back on D or die to that Raging Ravine. So
what's the deal with Steve Rubin being leyline proof here? He hasn't seen a single one out of Butakov. Butakov had one all the time in the other match.
Right. I mean, the odds of having a 4 in your opening hand is right around 40%. So it shouldn't be happening quite that often, although it certainly seemed like something, if we had told people who have never done the math at home that it's just an 82%er, you'd probably be forced to believe it the way that Dmitry has drawn them in spades.
I believe that when you just said it right now. Glade Cover Scout is going to attack into Dark Confidant. Though with Steve Rubin sitting there on multiple copies of Liliana the Veil, he is not incentivized to block. He's going to go ahead and let his Dark Confidant do what Dark Confidant does. And boy, this is powerful stuff here.
Yeah,
he's got now
an
2 hand disruption spells. Yeah, for sure. He can just strip his hand of everything.
Right, and he's setting up for a potential Bloodbraid Elf next turn. Dmitry doesn't have much of a clock. Like, a lot of his clock right now is just the Bob itself. And I mean, Steve has done more damage to himself than Dmitry's done. No more action left in hand, although is representing Dryad Arbor and play with that Windswept Heath. Otherwise, he might consider attacking and potentially trading for a Boggle, but trading for Dryad Arbor doesn't sound particularly hot. I mean, you do have Lilianis in your hand to make it a slightly better trade, but holding back on defense to just block is going to be better in most of these instances.
Well, with another Windswept Heath in hand for Dmitry Butakov, he can just go get a Temple Garden here and then just play a Heath this turn. Keep that insurance policy in check. And keep applying pressure to Steve's life total, although it is only 2 damage, so he's not exactly running him over at this point. Land off the top for Butakov, by the way, means that he doesn't have anything to do this turn other than play that Windswept Heath. But look at this. Steve's going to block.
No, I mean, this allows him to play Liliana minus, have Liliana get eaten, but the next Liliana is looking good to survive. It also gives him the option of Bloodbraid Elf, which is not fantastic against a Hexproof creature. A lot of your hits are going to be spells that, if you hit your Maelstrom Pulse, one of your best cards in the matchup, it doesn't actually do anything. Although Bloodbraid Elf into Anger the Gods is actually a great interaction because you get to cast the Anger with the Bloodbraid not on the board yet. So
it looks like Steve's just going to spin the wheel right now. He's not messing around with Liliana. Well, maybe he is. Let's find out. No, it's Scavenging Ooze that he hits. But yeah, he's just going to play his most powerful card and start applying pressure back to Dmitry. He knows that this window doesn't often stay open long, but this draw from Dmitry is terrible. Steve Rubin, is he actually going to take match number 1 from Dmitry Butakov?
It would take an incredible sequence for Dmitriy to be able to win this game. He's in such a terrible spot right now. This is going to be Liliana Tarmogoyf, double spell turn, and all of the creatures in Steve's deck are bigger than these boggles. Like, even a single enchantment doesn't really help all that much. And Ethereal Armor here just gives you a 2/2 first strike, typically your best enchantment. Daybreak Coronet, dead card. So, yeah, just terrible spot for Dmitriy to be in. I mean, his draw didn't perfectly come together. He didn't have the ley line. The discard ripped his hand apart, and then he drew multiple lands in a row, which is, just brutal for a deck that doesn't play that many mana sources.
Yeah, so this time Liliana of the Veil says target player sacrifices a land, and in the meantime, the pressure is like this could be the last chance that Butakov has. He needs something insane here.
Yeah, there's nothing in the deck.
Draws. Yeah, that ain't it.
I mean, if Dmitriy stacked his deck from here on out, he just wouldn't win this game.
Can't do it. Steve Rubin is going to take match number 1 here in a turn or two. I am blown away. We saw what short work Dmitry Butakov made of Lars Dam, and this deck from Steve Rubin, the main difference is that Steve can actually apply pressure, right? I mean, look at the creatures he has, where Lars's creatures were all 2/1s, couldn't really put a clock down, and we've seen Steve use that to his advantage in combination with some kind of bad draws from Dmitry Butakov, and that's going to do it. Steve Rubin takes match number 1. He needs to win one of the next 2 matches, and if he does, he's going to be our Magic Online champion. Now it's on Butakov. He's going to have to start drawing those ley lines in his opening hand, isn't he, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, you can't stumble against a player like Steve Rubin on a deck as powerful as Jund. I mean, he's got the interaction, so if you don't have the ley line, you get punished that way, and he's going to put a clock on you. Bloodbraid Elf hits really hard, and these creatures are nicely sized. I mean, it is not a guarantee that you can attack past them like you can a 2/1 creature, and so you do need to actually have your draws come together. You have to have probably at least 2 lands without drawing a lot of lands, because if you get flooded, it's just terrible in these matchups. You really want to be able to protect your hand from, the discard spells. We saw last match, the Grixis deck only had 4 discard spells. Steve has more discard spells. So without a ley line in play, he's going to have more access to being able to rip that hand apart. And then, he has drawn the Maelstrom Pulse, which, wasn't super relevant. He ended up losing that game too, but it's just a powerful threat to have access to in your deck. And, he's got a few answers. He can definitely interact. And so these Lilianas are still real threats. And we saw in multiple times that Steve didn't even choose to cast a turn 3 Liliana because he had better things to do, which just goes to show how powerful this deck is.
That's right. So we've got a short break lined up, but when we come back, it's going to be match 2 of the finals. We'll see you then.
Oh God, I've made so many mistakes. The time, so I make plenty of mistakes, but the one that comes to mind right now, at least the time of recording, is I submitted a draft video where I took Moment of Craving over Ravenous Chupacabra because I just saw it and took it, and for some reason my brain just didn't register it, and I still sent this video in and received a fair bit of flack for that one.
One of the most memorable mistakes that I made was I was playing in Kaladesh Limited, and I had the card Salivating Gremlins, which says whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, it gets +2/+0. And I looked at my hand, and I'm like, okay, I can win this game. I just have to figure it out. I played an artifact, and I did a few other things. And I played Whirler Virtuoso, ready to make a Thopter, and I attacked with my creatures. And all I had to do was make the Thopter to deal the last 2 points of damage and kill my opponent. And I realized I forgot to get my 3 energy, and then I lost on the next turn.
I once played Psychotok at the European Championships. I had my opponent down to 0 cards in hand. I had a full grip, 7 cards. I had a Psychotok on board. I had a Duress, I had a Counterspell, I had a Circular Logic. And for some reason, I decided to attack with my Psychotok, discard my whole hand, and keep my Circular Logic in my hand, and then removed my graveyard. And they had top deck and unsummon that they had to try and play. Of course, they knew I had a counterspell, except I didn't. And I ended up losing that match. That was absolutely embarrassing.
One big mistake that I remember, just because it happened today, was that I attacked with a Bloodbraid Elf, and I had a Dark Confidant out. Opponent had 2 cards in hand and 2 mana, and I cascaded a Call Against command with the Bloodbraid Elf, and then I chose to make the opponent discard a card, and he had the, I don't know what it's called, some madness card, which made me lose the game. But after all, I had some luck in the rest of the game, so I qualified for the top 4.
There's a lot. It was bad. Basically, when I used to be good, I would, I used to be really good. Basically, every time I made a mistake at a PT that cost me a match or a top 8 or something, I wouldn't get over it until the next PT. That was the only cure. I was like, the only way I'd move on is the next PT. So there were a lot. Pretty memorable one is, I like it too because I didn't get punished. I'm playing for top 8 in Kobe, it was Tooth and Nail. I'm playing against Affinity. I Mindslaver my opponent. And I make him make a play where I end up having to chum block. I make him attack me with Somber Hoverguard, but had miscounted my mana. So I was dead to the attack, so I had to activate my Nexus. And my plan was to activate Nexus, pump it, trade with the Hoverguard. And I didn't have the mana to pump it. So I ended up making him attack, having to chump, lost the game, won game 3, made top 8, made it final. So I kind of love this story because it was a really awful mistake, mind-slavering myself basically, and I still won and I still get to get in. So it's like it's a good one.
Hello there, welcome back to coverage here at the Magic Online Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, that's Eric Froelich. Thank you so much for joining us here. It is time for, of course, the finals. We have one match finished. It was Steve Rubin with a perhaps unlikely upset there in that first match over Dmitriy Butakov. You said this matchup is closer, Eric, than the one that we witnessed prior with Lars Stam playing the Grixis control deck, but still, Steve just kind of had his way there.
I mean, based on what we saw, there could not possibly be a matchup that's less close than what we saw previously.
Yeah, for sure. Okay,
so he won 4 games to nothing in about 8 minutes flat.
He did, yeah. So I think the players are actually ready to go. So why don't we head down? It's time for the second finals match and perhaps the decider. Hello there, welcome back to coverage here at the Magic Online Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Eric Froelich. Thanks so much for coming along. We're in the finals. We're playing best 2 out of 3 matches, and this is match number 2. Steve Rubin won the first one. If he wins this match, he is your Magic Online champion, but it's not going to be easy for him. There's turn 1 Leyline of Sanctity for Dmitriy Butakov, and he has the great draw here, Eric. Look at this.
Yeah, he's not winning this. I almost cut you off when you're like, if he wins this one, it's like he's not winning this game. He was 0% on turn 1. He kept a hand that is really
I wasn't even done with the introduction, and Butakov already won.
Yeah, Steve kept a speculative hand. 5 lands is tough. 2 Thoughtseize. All right, so his plan is simple. Dmitriy needs to not have a leyline, and he's going to, play a turn 1 Boggle, and I'm going to take his first aura and hopefully take another aura and, draw into gas. And he had the turn 1 Leyline and was dead on turn 2 effectively.
Eric, there's matches that we cover at our various events where it's okay to go get a sandwich. This is not one of those matches. You do not want to step away from your screen because this is fast and furious. And check this out, Leyline of Sanctity again for Butakov. How does the rest of his draw look? Pretty awesome. He's got the Boggle.
It's fantastic, but this is actually one of those draws where Rubin kind of has it all. I mean, if he finds a red source, this Anger of the Gods will absolutely take care of a Boggle this game. And he's got Maelstrom Pulse, which means he has a way to interact with Leyline, although the Leyline's not actually doing anything right now. Steve doesn't have any of his cards that target his opponent. Dark Confidant means he gets an extra draw step.
Huge draw step here. He needs an untapped red source. No, he doesn't find it. Liliana the Veiled's not going to get the job done because of the ley line, and that might have been the opening that Steve needed, because next turn we're going to see Daybreak Coronet, and that boggle's going to be clear of Anger of the Gods.
Yeah, that is a great point. Except this Liliana gets to come down now. It's going to tick up. It's going to take, just a land from Dmitri's hand. But if Dmitri's turn does not involve playing a Dryad Arbor, let's say he played a Daybreak Coronet and another Aura, let's say a Rancor, that means that what Steve can actually do is cast Maelstrom Pulse, destroy the Leyline of Sanctity, and the Liliana can then tick down to kill the Boggle. Now, Dmitry, not his first rodeo, not just going to let this happen. He'll play around it, leave that Windswept Teeth up, and make sure that he has the Dryad Arbor available to save his Boggle.
Dmitry is extremely good at Magic in general and very good at this matchup. He plays really quickly.
The one problem with this means, this is something I talked about in the pregame, Maelstrom Pulse destroying an aura when a creature has Daybreak Coronet and no other aura on it makes the Coronet just fall off.
You're right. He only has the Spirit Mantle right now. Wow. Reduce that Slippery Bogle back to square one. It's just a 1/1, Eric.
Yeah, and now he's got like a Dark Confidant that actually sits here and can block. So even if you're able to Rancor it up, that's not going to be enough. Steve's got some extra draws. He still has plenty of life to work with. Another Dark Confidant in hand. So Steve is very much in this game.
Wow, this has been a great one. Super, super close. It looked like it slipped away from Rubin, but that 2-for-1 with the Maelstrom Pulse has put Dmitriy Butakov and that Slippery Bogle right back into the Stone Age. He's got a pair of 1/1s. Oh, but he finds another Daybreak Coronet. Is that a good draw for him? Like, Anger of the Gods is live or no? +3/+3, no.
Yeah, it's going to be just out of range.
So the interesting thing now is that Anger of the Gods can kill the Dryad Arbor.
Right, but he only has
Steve
one Maelstrom Pulse in his whole deck.
Answer.
Right?
Yeah, so a great draw for Dmitriy Butakov once again.
Yeah, there's not much that really would have got the job done. Of course, any of the Totem Armor effects could have prevented his creature from dying, and not a lot of other ways. I guess Ethereal Armor actually is going to be huge right now too, so would have been very similar. But yeah, this Daybreak Coronet is definitely the perfect draw. A little unfortunate for Steve that he didn't have one of his 1-mana removal spells. Could have been able to kill the Dryad Arbor during his own end step when Dmitry, was able to search it out, and the Daybreak Coronet and Rancor couldn't have been cast in the same turn. And that would have allowed Steve the window to potentially win this game and steal it. But he didn't have it in his hand. Of course, he boarded out some number of fatal pushes, I'm sure. And so not as much access to cards like that, but he definitely had a reasonable chance to win this game. And at this point, it does look like it slipped.
Wow, incredible draw steps there from Dmitriy Butakov. I really thought that one was gone, but it's not. And he did have an interesting choice there. He was deciding if he wanted to attack Liliana of the Veil or Rubin. He goes for Rubin.
Yeah, this is actually goes back to the last turn. He had an interesting decision point. That Maelstrom Pulse, killed the Spirit Mantle, which killed the Daybreak Coronet, cut the clock down tremendously. Now, he had the option. He could have cast the Maelstrom Pulse on the Leyline of Sanctity. And what that would have done was it would have forced Dmitry to probably attack the Liliana, get that off the board. He could have blocked if it wasn't for Rank, or I guess there's Spirit Mantle, so he couldn't block. So he'd be forced to attack the Liliana or, be a victim of this Edict effect.
This is just game, right?
Yeah, this game, I mean, it was over last turn. There really wasn't a great, like, Steve just doesn't have the answers left in his deck. He drew kind of everything he wanted to draw, but just didn't really work.
Should he attack with a Dryad Arbor here? Let's see. If we see a double block from Confidant, he would take 5, go to 1.
Yeah, he can block with the Treetop Village here.
Oh, sure. The Treetop as well. Okay. There is a Spider Umbra under there, so he won't lose the Slippery Bogle, but...
Right.
Yeah, this is so rough for Steve. He can't even bother with all of this nonsense. He's just going to soak up as much damage as possible. But Dmitriy Butakov has the win there, Eric. And Dmitry strikes back. That is 1 match apiece for our 2 players.
Right. The Daybreak Coronet there, I believe, also gives first strike. So
it does.
Blocking was going to be pretty bad, however you slice it. And
you're right, yeah. He was only soaking up damage. That's all that the toughness was doing.
Yeah, it was really one of those spots where if Steve had access to any of the cards that can kill an enchantment, Maelstrom Pulse, Abrupt Decay, or, a Haymaker like, Back to Nature that isn't in his deck, that would be fantastic. He could certainly win that game. But he already drew the Maelstrom Pulse, he already used it, it's gone. I mean, there's just no other way to interact with what Dmitry's doing. And, that Daybreak Coronet was a great draw.
Yes, it really was. Wow, that one went back and forth like a ping pong ball. It was like I thought that both players were going to just win the game at different points, and it ended up being Dmitriy Butakov in two relatively quick games takes down match number 2, and we're all tied up. So that's going to set the stage for the final match of our finals, which leaves us with a Pro Tour champion and a Magic Online champion, and the title up for grabs. I should remind you, by the way, what we're actually playing for here, especially if you're just tuning in. This is a major tournament. This is a big deal. They're playing for $40,000 first place prize. They're also playing for Insta Platinum is what we call it. They get platinum status on the Pro Players Club immediately upon winning this. That is a huge deal. I mean, it effectively means that you're a full-time professional Magic player for a year plus, and you're getting paid to go out to the tournaments and the fees and all that kind of stuff. And then you also get an invite back to the Magic Online Championship next year as well. Now, second place isn't going to go home crying. They're still going to get $20,000, but that's a major jump between the two, between first and second, Eric.
Yeah, this is no joke. I mean, we don't really see single matches for much more than this. I mean, there's 4 Pro Tours a year, there's the World Championships, and of course we have the Magic Online Championship. Like, these are our flagship events, and you know, this is massive. I mean, this is a ton of money. This is a huge status jump where it's worth a ton of money there too. And being able to come back to this tournament next year, I'm sure both of these players value that immensely. I mean, as they should. This is a great tournament, of course. These are 2 great players who have a great chance to win again next year as well.
Yeah, you know, Dmitry Butakov, if he is to win this, he may just never lose the Magic Online Championship again. I think he likes it better when he's winning it. He is, as I mentioned before, he's putting himself in a position to win this match and become our first multiple Magic Online champion. And I'm really impressed by that. I mean, the field of players that try to qualify for these events is vast, to say the least. And it's extremely difficult to find your way into the Magic Online Championship and get yourself to the finals here. You have to go through so many players and big fields, and it can be really difficult. But thankfully, there are a lot of ways to do it. If you'd like to try to qualify for this event, there's numerous ways to get in. There's mocks qualifiers that are open. You can just play them. They're sealed deck. Now, you're gonna have to beat a lot of players. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you, but
even Kenji can do it.
But even Kenji can do it. That is one of the ones that he won. You can also qualify. You can take a look here at the different ways to do it. In one of the 8 slots from a Mox playoff, and you actually only have to make the finals of that one. Of course, the defending champion gets to come back. Go ahead.
Yeah, easy. Just make it to the finals of these Mox Opens, where it's typically about every single Platinum Pro, every single best player on Magic Online, and a handful of just excellent players as well. You know, it's a pretty easy mix. I mean, you saw what field we started with. I mean, if you just look at the bottom of the standings, you're looking at Pro Tour champion Brock Barker, you're looking at Reed Duke, you're looking at Marcio Carvalho. Like, these are like some of the best players in the world. I mean, all of these guys were able to qualify for this event. Look at all the Platinum players who tried to qualify for this event who could not. I mean, myself, Paul Rietzel, and of course, a slew of others. It is incredibly difficult to get in. It is a stacked field, and it's a stacked Mox field just to, you know, try to get there. And so, tough tournaments. Everyone here has done a great job of proving themselves, and now we have the best of the best. Like, the last 2 standing, down to 1 match for all the marbles, 3 games left. Excited to see who's able to take it down.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how this goes as well. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on that Maelstrom Pulse from Steve Rubin as the one card that he can have to help himself really interact with some of the things that he's going to be seeing on the other side of the battlefield there. He did skimp a little bit on those type of effects. You know, typical of Jund lists will be some number of Maelstrom Pulses, some number of Abrupt Decays, but in this case, that number is 1, and it's just for the Maelstrom Pulse.
Yeah, I mean, if he's able to find that card, it can definitely completely change any game. And if he doesn't, things definitely vary. I mean, there are definite haymakers in this match, and ways to kill enchantments are definitely up there, and Leyline of Sanctity is definitely up there as well. So, I mean, both of these players, their opening draws are going to matter. I mean, these games have been fast and furious, and not a lot of room for error. If you flood out a little bit, it's going to be tough. And so you really want to see those good cards in your opening hand, be able to keep a nice 6 or 7 and go from there.
All right, well, let's head on down. It's time for the final match of the finals. Let's go. Hello there. Welcome back to coverage here at the Magic Online Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Eric Froelich, and it is the final match of the finals. We're playing best 2 out of 3 matches, and this is the last one. Players have split matches coming in. And do we see the key cards? No, we do not. We don't see a Ley Line of Sanctity for Dmitriy Butakov, and I don't see a Maelstrom Pulse for Rubin. So this means that Rubin gets to say, okay, I'm going to thought seize you then. And what does he see?
He sees 1 copy of a Boggle, a few auras, and a few lands. So this is huge advantage to Rubin.
So Rubin goes up to the counter and says, I'd like 1 bagel, please.
So
puts that into his shopping basket, and no draw of another one for Dmitriy Butakov.
Yeah, what this means for Dmitriy is that he likely needs to go the Dryad Arbor route.
Oh, God. I can't even think. This is a game 1. Remember, this is pre-sideboards because we're in our 3rd match. Any number of Fatal Pushes and Lightning Bolts could be lurking in hand for Steve Rubin. Extremely risky for Dmitriy Butakov to do it, but I'm kind of with you. Unless he draws a Slippery Bogle or a Glade Cover Scout here, what are his options? Well, it looks like he may not be going that route, though. He did not crack his Windswept Heath on end step. That would mean that his Dryad Arbor would have Summoning Sickness.
Right. I mean, the options are basically sit here and wait, hope to find a Boggle, and then hope that it's good enough, which also means that Steve has to not have a Liliana in his hand because that would completely shut it down. I guess he's found access to more fetch lands to potentially get a Dryad Arbor, but that also means that his mana is going to be slower to develop if he's leaving that up to go find a Dryad Arbor in response to a Liliana. It means he can't play all his auras. It just slows him down dramatically. This is a tough spot.
Yeah, but here we are. There's the Dryad Arbor. And this is a brutal position here. He finds Core Spirit Dancer.
Okay, that's a good one because what he can actually do here is put an aura on the Core Spirit Dancer, hope that now that survives. It's going to be big enough to actually tangle in combat. The reason why he had to go get a Dryad Arbor now was that this clock's just too fast. I mean, you can go get let's say we know there's a Slippery Boggle on top of Dmitriy's deck. Well, is it going to be fast enough to race that Tarmogoyf and the Scavenging Goose? The answer is very likely no, and that's even before the Bloodbraid Elf comes down.
Let's find out what he hits with Bloodbraid Elf. It's going on the stack right away, and it's Kolaghan's Command. So what can he do with that? Kill the Dryad Arbor?
Yeah, he can kill the Dryad Arbor. He's
Start a card.
It's not incredible.
No,
it's not his best removal spell here. But
I suppose Fatal Push is what he really wanted to see there.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. He's got copies of cards like Dreadbore, just being able to kill that Core Spirit Dancer and get in for as much damage as he can. But this is gonna put an instant into the graveyard. It makes the Tarmogoyf a little bit bigger. Can now attack past this Core Spirit Dancer, and Dmitriy is just gonna load up. He's gonna cast his auras. He's gonna draw a bunch of cards. No reason.
This thing's gonna be huge.
Right, which kind of gives Steve a one-turn window. Is it lethal? Let's see.
It's a 20-powered creature. It's lethal.
Yeah. Multiple copies of Ethereal Armor.
What the heck?
Wow.
He just lined up a 2018 First Strike Trampler. Just killed Steve Rubin. Oh my God. Bagel with all the fixins there for Dmitriy Butakov, and he takes game number 1 out of nowhere, Eric. That was absurd.
That was absurd. I mean, man, Steve, it really looked like Steve had a great chance to win that game. He had a lot of incredible hits off Bloodbraid Elf. That Spirit Dancer was the best draw possible, and he, gets to draw some extra cards and found exactly what he needed. Just the door was left ajar, and Dmitriy walked right on through.
I think he kind of slammed the door down and announced his presence. Now, oh boy, I see a Ley Line of Sanctity. I see a Slippery Bogle in hand for Butakov, along with the land and some auras here, Eric. This one could be over quickly.
Yeah, Dmitriy is, I feel like, about a 1 mana source and 3 turns away from taking this crown.
Let's see what he finds. He finds Ethereal Armor, a fine pickup for him. He's going to play the Slippery Bogle now.
If you're not going to draw a land, Ethereal Armor is about as good as you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. We saw the raw power of Ethereal Armor in that last game, as those 2 copies of Ethereal Armor were the cards that allowed Dmitriy to build the ultimate battle cruiser there and get the job done.
It was 1 mana +6/+6. No big deal.
No biggie. Now, the double ley line opener, not super great. Steve Rubin doesn't have any way to deal with just one of them, I don't think, anyway. And so it's effectively one card down for Butakov. But having one of those in his openers is so important. And here we go. Ethereal Armor crashing in, giving an additional +1/+1 thanks to the ley line. So I guess he found something good. A lot of lands off the top of the library here for Steve Rubin. Best thing he can do is cast Liliana of the Veil and just plus.
That is the best thing you can do, and it's not a very good thing.
Not a very good thing. This one could be slipping away. We may have our first repeat Magic Online champion. Dmitriy Butakov is in prime position to take down match number 3 against our Pro Tour champion, Steve Rubin, and claim that second trophy.
Right. I mean, Dmitry doesn't need to draw any cards at this point. This Rancor is going to, threaten the game. It's going to be a 7-power Boggle next turn with First Strike and Trample. Dark Confidant can't really find anything. I mean, even a Maelstrom Pulse is just not really. Well, I guess a Maelstrom Pulse with Liliana already in play to kill the ley lines is the one thing that we're looking at here. If Dmitry is not able to find any of his Totem Armor effects, that's kind of it's Maelstrom Pulse or bust, I guess.
That's right. It's Maelstrom Pulse, or perhaps the good old-fashioned way, Bloodbraid Elf into Maelstrom Pulse, but one or the other, because this one's not going to last much longer. Probably just one draw step here for Rubin, because that's a 7-power Bogle, especially with the land off the top from Butakov. But here we go. And look at this. Butakov is going to play insurance. What a smart play from him, killing the Liliana of the Veil. This is the first time that we've seen him not attack Steve Rubin directly.
Yeah, definitely the correct play. I mean, Dmitry is just not missing anything with this deck. For a guy who says that his most hated deck is Boggles, this guy, I mean, just pilots it with incredible proficiency.
Yes, and at great speed. Thank you, Dmitry. It makes it more fun to watch, and this should be it, right? Daybreak Coronet can
not
effectively
literally
add
it,
4
but
power?
it is effectively it. Yeah, this
Wow.
ends all hopes of racing. This ends all outs. There's
Boggles
Maelstrom Pulse
fans-
no longer does anything.
No, Boggles fans across the world are cheering for Dmitry Butakov right now as the little slippery Bogle that could is about to win the
Armor
match.
is about
and
to be
that
banned from Modern.
does it. Dmitry Butakov is your Magic Online champion. Incredible stuff from him, and congratulations. He is your first 2-time Magic Online champion. Boy, that is quite a career achievement for Dmitry.
Unbelievable. I mean, the guy's just a master. Like when it comes, I mean, you just noted about a minute ago how proficiently, how speedily he plays Magic Online. Like this is what this guy does, and he does it as well as anyone in the world. A very deserving champion, and now 2-time champion.
That's right. So you're going to be seeing him once again out at the Pro Tour. We'll be seeing Dmitry trying to run it up on the paper Magic scene as well. But for now, he is the king of Magic Online once again. He's got a lot of fans as well because he's got a real style to him. If you ever watch one of his interviews, he's hilarious. And I love the way that he approaches his decision making and the things. He's very blunt. He'll just tell you exactly what he thinks. And I think people really appreciate that. And we're going to get a chance, of course, to have a chat with him as he's going to be getting his trophy in just a few minutes. But we can kind of take a minute to breathe a sigh of relief, Eric, because, boy, that was a wild ride watching that Boggles deck. It looked like it was going to lose. Then all of a sudden it looked like it was going to win, and it ends up getting the job done.
Yeah, definitely that game 1, a series of top decks, just that game just kept swinging back and forth. And game 2, not so close. I mean, that final game was Dmitry just doing his thing, showing why this Boggles matchup can beat up on John. And I'm excited for this winner's interview. These interviews with Dmitry throughout the weekend, if you haven't checked them out, make sure you do. We've heard Paul Rietzel multiple times commenting on, this is not necessarily a guy that you are going to know a ton about. You don't see him out there. We don't get to hear from him all that often. And listening to his interviews and with the humility he speaks with and just the way that he approaches Magic, it's fantastic. And so I think he's made a ton of fans out there. And of course, we're going to see him out on the Pro Tour, as you mentioned, and back at the Magic Online Championships next year. And just a lot of Dmitry Butakov, which is kind of awesome for everyone, awesome for the game of Magic. So excellent champion.
Yeah, now of course, when you're playing on Magic Online next time and you get matched up against his name is just Butakov on Magic Online, run. It's not good for you. He is an absolute beast. All right, it sounds like we're ready. Let's head on down and give Dmitry Butakov his trophy.
Thanks so much, Marshall. Well, it is time for the Magic Online Championship winners trophy presentation. Lee Sharp from Wizards of the Coast.
Dmitry, congratulations on being the Magic Online champion.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
You're the first person to win this event twice. How does it feel?
It feels awesome. I was not even dreaming about it, but it's just great.
So what does this mean for you? You've got $40,000, you've locked up platinum, you get a chance to come back, try and win it for a third time. Yeah. What does this mean for your career?
First of all, platinum status is just what I've dreamed about. Money, of course, is great, but platinum status is what I came here for. So I'm very happy to achieve it finally.
You've played so many matches of Magic Online, the most of anybody who's been here at this tournament, more than 43,000. Tell me about the role that Magic Online plays in your day-to-day life.
You know, I live in Siberia, it's pretty cold there, so you have one of your better ways to spend time is just play Magic Online. And in playing Magic Online you achieve muscle memory, and you don't have to think through every decision. You start thinking to solve the not the exact situation, but you know, such kind of situation. So you start playing automatically, and it helps a lot. It saves you time, it saves your nerve.
So what tips do you have for people who might be watching at home and they say, I'm interested in trying to qualify for this tournament?
Keep playing, don't get mad if you lose. Try to play with better players, because the best way to learn is to play a better opponent.
How do you feel about your deck choice of Boggles? I mean, obviously it was the correct one for this tournament. You just smashed with it. Going forward, do you think this is going to be a popular deck?
I don't think so. Decks like Boggles are very specialized, and it's wise to take them only to some small tournaments. On the big stage, they may not act so great.
Do you think it'll have a target on its back now for people? Are people going to be ready for this deck coming into future tournaments?
Maybe for a couple of weeks, but I doubt it will be more.
All right, so is there anybody that you want to say thank you to here at this big moment for you?
Oh, of course, I want to say thank you to my grandmother. When I was living in Siberia, she told me, don't worry, Dmitry, 5,000 is okay.
Well, your grandma sounds awesome, and you've brought an awesome deck to this tournament, a very smart choice. Dmitry, congratulations, two-time Magic Online Championship winner. Thank you to everybody who's been along for the ride this whole weekend, all of our commentators, Athena Froelich, Randy Buehler, the whole Wizards of the Coast staff, and of course the players, and you at home for watching. Good night.